fascinating field of study because it is so fundamental to our lives that plays a role in everyone's life and touches every aspect of our existence in some way or the other. Chemistry is not only essential for meeting our basic needs of food, shelter, and clothing, but the chemical technologies enrich the quality of life in numerous ways by providing new solutions to the problems in health, materials, and energy usage. And it remains the most invaluable science and plays the most critical role in drug development process. And not only that, it serves as the backbone to frame the drug discovery and contributes to the growth of pharma industry. The most important discoveries in chemistry, especially in relation to medicine, to name a few, like vaccines, medical devices such as pacemakers and blood bags, are actually saving hundreds and thousands of lives every day across the globe. And life saving medicines help us combat diseases and make our lives make us live longer or increase the longevity. And the recent discovery in medical field by the two women scientists, Madam Emmanuel and Madam Jennifer, one of gene technology's sharpening tools, has a revolutionary impact on life sciences in contributing to new cancer therapies, which are making the dream of curing the diseases come true, for which they are awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for 2020. So, from all this, it is evident that chemistry has a major role to play in our lives. And the theme of today's international webinar, that is new insights and the recent developments in chemistry, is I feel it is rightly uh, planned by the Department of Chemistry, and I'm very happy to be a part of it. And the speakers of today's webinar, the first speaker, Dr. Janaki Ram Maitla, Assistant Professor from IIT Delhi, is going to deliver a talk on cylindrosanes and lipidophomines, class of alkaloids. Uh, the synthesis of these compounds, complex molecules, has fascinated the chemists not only due to the complex structures, but also the biological activity as cytotoxin. So in this synthesis, total synthesis, this being very complex molecules, we come across many of the reactions. So I feel students and the participants would be greatly benefited by this. And the next speaker, Dr. Ramu Yadav, Assistant Professor, he is also from IIT Delhi. He's going to talk about transition metal catalyzed nitro cross coupling reactions, which are similar to Suzuki couplings. And I think almost all the postgraduate students, they know about the Suzuki couplings. And now he is going to talk about some other transition metals which are used as catalysts for the nitroarene compounds. And they form the important area of research. And the third speaker, Dr. P. Ravikumar, Associate Director from Vanda Pharmaceuticals, Washington, D.C., USA, is going to talk about the drug development and the discovery to commercialization. So he is going to talk about the various stages involved, how a drug before it is commercialized or before it is released into the market as a safe drug, how many stages it has to undergo, and what are the how much time it takes, and what is the amount of money it is spent. So all this process is going to explain. Is going to explain, and that is not only useful to the students of chemistry background, but also especially to the pharmacy students. And finally, the last speaker of today's webinar, Dr. S. Harikrishna Reddy, who has done his research under the supervision of Professor Goyadhan Mehta, who is well known across the scientific community in chemistry across the globe. And he has done his research under his guidance, and he is going to talk about the importance of organic chemistry in medicine. And as we all know that most of the drugs or medicines which are used, they are the organic molecules, and in this process we are going to come across how the organic molecules, simple organic molecules, we can make use of them in making the medicines. And since he is from a cancer institute, that is Novartis Laboratories, he is also from USA. So we'll come to know about the importance of chemistry, especially organic chemistry, and I think is also going to talk about some of the synthesis of some of the very complex molecules, complex molecules like I think he's going to talk about Golcondian. So the complexity in these molecules. See, normally the chemists are fascinated to synthesize the different molecules, not only due to the biological activity, but also due to the complexity involved in the molecules. So these molecules, especially the dodecahedrons and fullerene molecules, and then prismanes, and then cubines, and the Golcondians, they have some specific the reactions. We come across very complex because the molecule by itself is very complex. It is not that easy to synthesize or build the molecule. So when we were in MSc, we used to really get fascinated by the molecules by looking at them. The models would be there in the laboratory, and we used to always admire at those molecules. And to see the molecules, just to see them and to play with it or to meddle with it itself is a difficult task. And now we used to wonder how these molecules could be synthesized. And it is not a small job, or it is a very tedious job. And we just see how he's going to explain. And in this process, we not only come across the basic reactions, but sometimes if the already known reactions are not of help, we are going to develop some more reagents or reactions to complete the synthesis. So this part, I think, especially the MSc final year students who have seen the synthetic strategies, what are the different criteria to select a target molecule. So now these molecules, they come under that category, topological studies. So students be benefited. So with these few words, I conclude uh, with the hope that this webinar provides a great platform to all the participants. Thank you, one and all.
मैम अनम्यूट करो मैडम.
You unmute Nurjan.
Arjun?
मैडम म्यूट में है मैडम.
No, Arjun, you could hear, no?
Yes ma'am, your voice was there. Nurjan madam voice is not coming.
Okay, then we'll.
I just
yes,
thank you, madam. Yeah, thank you, madam. I welcome Dr. Madhusudan Reddy Garu to deliver the welcome address to the gatherings.
Thank you, Nurja ma'am. Good morning. Hello, I'm audible, ma'am.
Yeah, you are audible, sir.
Yeah, very good morning, one and all. On behalf of our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sri Rahul Bajaj IAS Garu, respected Registrar Professor Pendi Pawan Kumar Garu, on my behalf, really we appreciate the conveners, Professor Girja Ma'am Garu, former Registrar and Chairman Board of Studies, Dr. Noja Ma'am Garu, Head Department of Chemistry, co-conveners Dr. Chandrakiran Garu, Joint Director and Assistant Professor Department of Chemistry, and other faculty members of chemistry. So really we appreciate the conveners because we know every time when we think about academics, there was always a gap between academics and industry. And this international webinar is planned so nicely that morning sessions, it has been dealt by very reputed institutes, faculty members from IIT Delhi, like Dr. Janikaram Garu, and evening sessions by very reputed industry people, MNCs like Dr. Krishna Reddy Garu. So really, we look forward for a very interesting talk. And on behalf of our university, really we congratulate the department for being organizing such a wonderful program. And when it comes to this program, we know without chemistry, we cannot survive. from morning when you get up, right from your toothbrush to till you sleep, you have to use chemistry. So in this process, especially situations like pandemic COVID-19, where it has shown us much needs to be done in medical industry. So people like Dr. Krishna Reddy Garu, who is working in a very good position at MNC in a pharmaceutical industry. So we are expecting more insight into the recent developments of chemistry and research in chemistry. And such conditions, especially we know the climate changes that is hampering actually human activities. So maybe because of certain chemicals. So more green chemistry in the research need to be addressed. And once again, I congratulate the Department of Chemistry and hope this international webinar will pave very good insights into recent developments of chemistry and research methods. Thank you, one and all. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir, for addressing the gatherings. Now I welcome Professor Pindi Pavan Kumar sir, Registrar of Palamuri University, to deliver the inaugural address. Over to.
Yeah, thank you, madam. Yeah, thank you, madam. Good morning to all, respected, esteemed today's speakers, faculty members of Palamur University, delegates, scholars of various institutions across the country, and my dear colleagues and dear friends. I extend my warm and hearty welcome to you all to a virtual international webinar on new insights and recent developments in chemistry, being organized by Department of Chemistry, Palamur University, Mahbubnagar, Telangana State. The pursuit of knowledge and discovery has always been an intrinsic human characteristic, but when new knowledge is curated and put to the right hands, it has been the power to bring about high value change to the society. Chemistry is a fundamental and enabling science that investigations of molecules, the building blocks of all matter, and how they interact to affect the composition, structure, and properties of substances. The most important trend of all it is a relationship of chemistry to biology. More and more biology is taking a fundamental approach, understanding what's going on at a molecular level. And as it does, so it gets closer and closer to a chemistry subject. Increasing interactions between chemistry and other sciences, most notably the biological sciences, and also fields such as mathematics, engineering, and computers, and the other material sciences was identified as the single most important theme for the chemical sciences over the next 10 to 20 years. There have been recent suggestions that tighter linkage between the basic research and national goals should become a criterion for research support. Concerns also have been raised that science is being practiced for its own sake, and that would be better for the nation if research were oriented more towards specific industrial applications. Chemistry will help us to solve many future problems, including sustainable energy and food production, managing our environment, providing safe drinking water, and promoting human and environmental health. There will be a pressure on chemists to supply the chemistry to address the serious problems facing humanity, particularly with climate change, more efficient way of producing materials and chemicals for the rising of population, as well as the more obvious health related issues. To address these issues, there will be a focus on chemists being part of interdisciplinary terms, working to address problems around the world. I have some sympathy with the idea that chemistry needs to redefine itself, but this is an evolution, not a revolution. In all areas of discussion, I could cite some examples where change is already happening. It's really about shifting the centers of gravity. At the same time, we are probably all agreed that organic inorganic physical split is less and less relevant. There is an idea of linking chemistry and physics, geoengineering, and agri-economics. You see a lot of that already with some of these biotech initiatives and projects. I think agriculture is particularly crucial because the pressure is around nutrition, food security, and the expanding population. There is a need for a second kind of green revolution. The big issue facing healthcare is the access to medicine, affordability, become everything. Chemists have a role to play here. With good synthetic routes, the access questions can be solved at the price point and the world can afford proteins, cell-based therapies all have an important place. The role of chemistry in these platforms should not be underestimated. So with these few words, once again, I welcome the speakers of the webinar, so Dr. S. Harikrishna Reddy Garu and Dr. P. Ravikumar Garu from United States of America and Dr. M. Ramu Yadav and Dr. Janaki Ram Vaitla from IIT Delhi. So on this occasion, I must congratulate the conveners of the webinar, Professor Dr. Girija Madam, Department of Chemistry, so a former registrar and Board of Studies Chairman, Chemistry, and another convener, Dr. M. Nurjan Madam, Principal of University College, and co-conveners of the webinar, Dr. Chandra Kiran, Joint Director for Academic Audit Cell, and other organizing committee members who are conducting such a wonderful and informative webinar at our campus. And last but not least, I express my sincere thanks to all for inviting me on this academic virtual gathering. Thank you, one and all. Thank you. I wish you all the best and grand success of this webinar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your continuous encouragement for us. So we are very happy to hear you, sir. And now we will move on to the first session with the first lecture by Dr. Janakiram Vaitlagaru from IIT Delhi. I request Dr. Sudarshan Reddy to introduce the speaker to the audience with a short brief profile of Dr. Janakiram Vaitla. Over to Sudarshan Reddy.
Thank you, madam. Good morning, everyone. Is it audible?
Yeah,
Hello?
yeah.
Yes, madam. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, madam, for giving this opportunity to introduce Dr. Janakiram Vaitla, sir, from IIT Delhi. Dr. Vaitla obtained BSc in 2006 from Chemical Technology and MSc in 2009 in Organic Chemistry from Loyola Academy, Osmania University, Hyderabad. In 2010, he joined in CSIR National Chemical Laboratory for his PhD under the supervision of Dr. Ganesh Pandey. In 2013, he moved to Center of Molecular Research, Lucknow, as a visiting research scholar. In 2016, he accepted a postdoctoral position from the University of Tromsø, Norway, in the group of Professor Hopman and Professor Beyer. In 2018, he accepted position as researcher in the same group. Spending 3 years in Norway, he then moved to Emory University, Atlanta, USA, as a visiting researcher in the group of Professor Howe M.L. Davis. In February 2020, he came back to India and joined at Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, as an assistant professor. Dr. Whitelaw's research interests include the development of sulfoxonium halide chemistry, metal carbene nitrine chemistry, design and synthesis of new catalysts, CH activation, functionalization, and photoredox catalysis for the synthesis of bioactive molecules. So this is Sir's brief biodata in a nutshell. Sir, forgive me if I forgot anything. Now I request Dr. Whitelaw, sir. Sir, please, you can start your lecture. Sir, over to Dr. Janakram Whitelaw, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sudarshan, for your kind introduction. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir.
Can I share my screen?
Yes, sir. You can.
Just 1 minute. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Good morning to all of you. And it's an honor and privilege to give a talk in this webinar. And thanks to Dr. Noorjahan for inviting me here. And thanks to Department of Chemistry, Palamuru University. I'll go to the topic. Just 1 minute. Yes. So the topic discuss about multifaceted application of 7-aza-bicyclo-2,2,1 heptone scaffold. So this is the whole what is related to this single strain precursor. This is called aza-bicyclo-2,2,1 heptane. This one. So our target is a very simple that we would like to synthesize this kind of scaffolds, and we'll break this selective bond fragmentation of this aza-bicyclo precursor. Will do the selective bond fragmentation, and we will synthesize the various natural product frameworks. And by using these frameworks, we will apply the synthesis of a complex molecule called cylindricin and lipoidiformin class of alkaloids. Mostly we use sulfone chemistry here, and along with this, we will use sulfoxonamide derived carbonate chemistry also. And I will explain very little bit later of this concept. So now I'll go to the topic. So what is the nature's formula? Sorry, something is wrong. Yeah. Just 1 minute. I think something is wrong. Yep. So nature. So I'm just explaining what is the nature's formula. Nature synthesizes various molecules which are structurally different. In most cases, nature follows one common formula that it can diversify one common intermediate into several natural products. One common intermediate into several natural products. During the process of synthesis, nature maintains certain features. That is, these natural products are synthesized in asymmetric manner. And in the process of diversification, this common intermediate can generate various scaffolds, which are nothing but basic frameworks of most of the natural products. Most of the natural
we
products.
can't see slides. Is slideshow on?
Yeah, I think, sorry, I think maybe I started sharing the screen.
Now,
Yes,
now it is,
Yeah, now
we can see. Now,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think there is some disturbance came here. Okay, I'm just explaining the nature's formula. Okay, so nature synthesizes various molecules which are structurally different, and most of the cases, nature follow one common formula that it can diversify one common intermediate into several natural products. So during the process of synthesis, nature maintains certain features that these natural products were synthesized in asymmetric manner. In the process of diversification, this common intermediate can generate various scaffolds, which are nothing but basic structural units of these natural products. And another interesting feature is in the biosynthesis, it maintains all kind of selectivities like stereoselectivity, chemoselectivity, and regoselectivity. And in biosynthesis, one step, it can generate multiple bonds, multiple carbon-carbon or carbon heteroatom bonds it can form. So it's like a cascade reactions, all this one. I'm giving one example here, the strictocidin. So strictocidin is a common precursor for synthesis of various indole alkaloids like quinine, camptothecin, adenosine, and so on. So this strictocidin can be obtained in biosynthesis by Pictet-Spengler reaction of this tryptamine with this cycloguanine in the presence of strictocidin synthase. So this precursor can generate various kind of indole alkaloids, and these structures of these molecules I have not given here, but these structures of one alkaloid is completely different from another. So these are also pharmaceutically important. So now what is our objective is just we would like to copy the formula, copy the nature's formula and apply it in a chemical synthesis of various natural products. So here what we are going to do, we also develop one common intermediate, and based on this using this intermediate, we will synthesize structurally different kind of natural products by maintaining all these features. So here I'm showing some of the structurally complex alkaloids and pharmaceutically important molecules here. So these like histonicotoxin, erythrotermidin, cephalotoxin, and cacoulodin, and so on. This one. So these are all optically pure and biologically active. So this molecule, if you look at one structure of the molecule, is completely irrelevant to the another structure, another molecule, this one. But if you close look at this structure, here you can find one kind of similarity. These molecules were isolated from the different origins. So there is no relation between one molecule to another molecule. But if you look at the close, and you can find out one similarity here. So all this molecule contains spirofused bicyclic ring. So this ring is called a carbocycle and this ring is called heterocycle. These two rings are connected with the spirocarbon. And another thing is this nitrogen atom is adjacent to this spirocarbon. So you can look at all this kind of structures having the same kind of azospirocyclone unit. Okay, this is called the azospirocyclone unit. Okay, so in this molecule they contain different kind of azospirocyclone unit. For example, here it contains 6,6 and here 6,6 and a 5,5 and here 5,6. A different kind of azospirocyclone unit. So the challenging part is to synthesize this molecule is installing this tertiary amine unit. Sorry, this tertiary amine unit, this one. So our objective is to generate the tertiary amine. Our objective was to develop one particular method to synthesize this tertiary amine unit in both enantiomeric forms. Then after having this method, and we would like to, my mouse is not working. Yeah, after having this method in our hand, so we would like to synthesize this azospirocyclone unit, and by using this framework, our target is to synthesize these natural products. So in order to synthesize the tertiary amine unit, we visualized one precursor. It's like a bridge bicyclic precursor. It contains 3 different kind of strain bonds. I mentioned it here, the A bond and a B bond and the C bond. It contains heteroatom, the nitrogen atom at the bridge in methylene position. Yeah. So there are some other interesting feature in this common precursor that it contains the bridge position R groups. It's like a alkyl groups. I can put it here, alkyl group here. And this one here, it can generate the tertiary amine units here, this one here. And another thing is we kept here ketone as a reactive functional group here. We can do nucleophilic addition here. And also we can do electrophilic addition here adjacent to this carbonyl group because it's the most acidic proton here, which is a plank between 2 electron withdrawing groups here. So, and another third feature is like the sulfonyl groups. So sulfonyl groups generally it has many features that we can use it as an electron withdrawing group. Sorry, we can use it as an electron withdrawing group, and we can use it as a leaving group. And if we do not want, we can easily discard it in radical mediated reactions. So, and another fourth feature is like this bicyclic frameworks has 2 convex and concave phase. If any reactant, sorry, if any reactant wants to enter into this bicyclic framework, selectively comes from the exophase instead of endophase. So this is also help us to do the selective transformation during the synthesis. Now our target is to cleave these bonds selectively, like A bond and B bond and C bond. We would like to do the selective bond fragmentation so that we can get various kind of natural product frameworks. For example, sorry, yeah. For example, if we cleave this A bond, and I can get this cyclohexylamine derivatives. So if this bond I'm breaking here now, if I cleave this bond, I can get a cyclohexylamine derivative. And by using the cyclohexylamine derivatives, I can make this 6,6 and 6,4 fused other spirocyclines. I can, if suppose this R is an alkyl chain, if R is an alkyl chain, I can make it like a cycle like this one. Okay. And if I cleave this B bond, the B bond means here whatever I have shown it in a blue color here. If I cleave this B bond, I can get a 2,2,5,5 tetrasubstituted pyrrolidine unit. If I cleave the C bond means this one. Either it is also C bond and it is also same C bond, the similar, this one. So if I cleave this C bond, I can get a 2 to 5 trisubstituted pyrrolidines. So by this, I can easily make that 5,6 and 5,5 fused other spirocycline units. This structural frameworks are not only useful for the synthesis of natural product, we can also use it for the synthesis of drugs, so that I can use it for the drug designing also, this one. So now our first objective is to synthesize this bridge bicyclic framework. Once if I have this material in our hand, then only I can proceed for the selective bond fragmentation to synthesize these various other spirocycline units. So for this, I have chosen a protocol called the concept of asymmetric dismutation to synthesize our desired product, this one. So what is this asymmetric dismutation means? Here, for example, I do the dismutation on this meso compound. If you see this meso compound on the top view, the plane exactly bisecting into the two halves. It contains the plane of symmetry. So if we add an chiral diol on this meso compound, it can generate this disymmetrized adduct. And further deprotection of this ketal moiety, and we expected that we can get this keto compound. So I'll show the concept that what is our idea. So first what we do, the sodium hydride and diol, if we take this one, it can take this acidic proton, it can generate an alkoxide ion. So this alkoxide ion can attack on this vinyl sulfone and Michael addition fashion, it's oxo Michael addition fashion. It will attack here and it can generate an anion here. This anion comes back here and SO2 pH can knock off here. So here the SO2 pH can function as a dual role. So it can act as a electron withdrawing group as well as it act as a leaving group here. For example, instead of SO2 pH, if I take a COOET can act as a Michael acceptor here, electron withdrawing nature because of electron withdrawing nature, but it cannot act as a leaving group. If I put a bromo or iodo, any of these two functional groups here, it can act as a leaving group, but it cannot act as a Michael acceptor. So this is the advantage of this SO2 pH, and here it can act as an electron withdrawing group as well as a leaving group. So after knocking off this second SO2 pH, again, it can generate the double bond and it's ready for the second oxo Michael addition. So again, another equivalent of sodium hydride, it can take off this hydrogen and it can generate another alkoxide ion. It can attack here, second oxo Michael addition. It can generate this complex and under pinching with ammonium, saturated ammonium chloride, it can generate this disymmetrized adduct. So if we have this ketal unit and if you use under acidic condition, if deplete this ketal unit, we can get it this desired product, whatever we need it for the fragmentation reactions. So now our first target is to synthesize this meso compound. If we have this meso compound in our hand, then we can go for the disymmetration and we can get this material. In order to get this meso compound, so we have chosen the Diels-Alder reaction here. So Diels-Alder reaction between this pyrrole unit and this alkane. So initially we tried to synthesize this alkane, and whatever the efforts we put to synthesize this alkane is all were failed because of the instability of this alkane. So we modified that approach, and I'll show that one what we did it here. So first diaerophile is they have taken the trimethyl acetylene and treating with this compound with the tosyl chloride in presence of aluminum AlCl3 catalyst, we got this tosyl acetylene, and which upon further halogenation of this alkane, it gave the bromo substituted tosyl alkane is the required dienophile for the Diels-Alder reaction. And now I will show the synthesis of the diene. So I have taken the potassium ethyl malonate in the presence of excess amount of isopropyl grignard, isopropyl magnesium bromide. This we use as a base here. So it will generate anion here and it will quench the succinyl chloride to give this 1,4 dicarbonyl compound. Generally, if you add any nucleophile on acid chloride, it never stops at the ketone position. It's further react here and it will give the tertiary alcohol. So here there is a special feature of this 1,4 dicarbonyl compound. Here So I'll show the mechanism, the possible mechanism why it stops at the ketone position here. So here the potassium ethyl malonate and treating with excess amount of isopropyl magnesium bromide, it will generate this reactive intermediate. And this one, it will attack on the succinyl chloride, one of this acid chloride part, and it will give this anion here, and it will undergo the enolization to give this enolate. And this anion further react with the second acid chloride to give this lactone moiety. So the second equivalent of this reactive intermediate further attacks on this lactone unit, and it will, for ring opening, it gives this 1,4 dicarbonyl compound. And after treating this compound with the dilute HCl, and it CO2 will liberate, and whatever the compound we need for the next step, we got it here. So after having this 1,4 dicarbonyl compound in our hand, and then we subjected it for the Palmer condition to get this pyrrole unit. So treating this compound in presence of ammonium acetate and acetic acid in 3 hours, 3 hours, we got a 70% yield of this pyrrole. A simple bark protection, we got the desired diene for the cycloaddition. So we have the diene and the dienophile in our hand. We subjected it for the 4+2 cycloaddition, and we got, it was, reaction was very smooth, and it gave this cycloduct in 75% yield. The partial hydrogenation of this double bond H2 and palladium carbon and methanol in 3 to 5 hours, we got this partial hydrogenated product. And later we subjected it for the thiamical addition. So this first I have taken the 4-methyl thiophenol and I have added sodium hydrate, then it will generate sodium salt of thiophenol. So this S minus, it attacked here the like oxamical addition, that whatever, thiamical addition, that whatever I have shown it for the oxamical addition, the same mechanism here. Here anion it will generate, and it will come back, and the bromine will knock off, and it will give this thiol substituted product. And oxidation of this sulfur, and we got the desired meso compound for the decimation. So after having this meso compound in our hand, so next we tried for the decimation reaction. So this decimation reaction, we treated with this one RR hydrobenzoin. This is commercially available, and even we can make it in 100 gram in within 2 days using the Nairi hydrogenation protocol. So we treated this meso compound with the hydrobenzoin, and we got 45% yield of this product. We expected this one. So whatever I have shown it in the concept of decimation, based on that concept, we expected this product, but unfortunately we did not get this product, and various attempts we did it, and in all attempts it was failed to give this product. So the mechanism for this one reaction is also the similar like that whatever I have shown it in the concept. First it undergoes the oxamical addition, and the anion comes back and process will knock off, and it will undergo the second oxamical addition. Then resulted anion here before quenching it, and it comes up here and opening this CN bond. It's the CN bond is getting back. So it is giving the cyclohexylamine derivatives here. So we have tried in various basic conditions and various solvents, all were not fruitful. So we simply deprotected the bark and we carried out the decimation, and now this time it was successful. So instead of hydrobenzoin, we have taken this time hydroanisoine to get a good selectivities here. And if you use RR hydroanisoine, we got this diastereomer in 99:1 ratio. And if you use SS hydroanisoine, then we got opposite diastereomer, and it is it's also having the, it is also got in excellent selectivities here, the 99:1 here. The interesting thing is we can perform this decimation reaction in more than 15 gram scale. So after having this decimation product, we just deprotected this ketol moiety in the presence of DDQ, and later we protected this NH with the bark. So here we got both enantiomer of this product, and both are is more than 99%, because obviously it will come here 99:1 means that obviously it will come 99% enantiomeric excess here. So now the selectivity, how we got the selectivity is a 99:1. That is the important thing here. So if you look at this meso compound, it has two phases. One is the exophase and another one is the endophase. The incoming nucleophile has to come from the exophase because of steric indents bit of these two endoprotons here. So I wrote this RR hydroanisoine in a Sahar's projection. If you look at this Sahar's projection of this RR hydroanisoine, so here it will undergo the this alkoxide, it comes from the exophase. Here the distance between this phenyl group and this phenyl group is far away from each other. So this attack is favorable. Here in this case, the distance between this phenyl group and this one, it's very coming very close together. In this case, because of steric indents, this attack is not favorable, and only this attack can be favorable. So this is the reason that we are getting excellent diastereomeric selectivity. Of course, we changed various different kind of diols. So we observed with the hydroanisoine is giving excellent selectivities here. So after having this compound, now our target is do the selective bond fragmentation. So now this compound we have, so we can prepare this more than 50 grams within 1 week from starting from this dye-in. So after having this material in our hand, we would like to do the selective bond fragmentation. I already discussed about strain bonds in the previous slide, that it contains 3 different kind of strain bonds. So A bond and B bond and a C bond. So now our target is to do the selective bond fragmentation without affecting the other bonds. We would like to do the selective bond fragmentation of A bond, selective B bond fragmentation, and selective C bond fragmentation. In order to do this one, we would like to follow the bond breaking concept. It was reported in 1980s itself, that one. Suppose if any molecule, for example, I'm giving one molecule, beta hydroxyketone. If we want to do a retroaldol under H plus means acidic condition, so like it will undergo the equilibrium. So it will generate this aldol precursors, and again it will undergo the aldol reaction to give this beta hydroxy compound. But similar kind of substrate, if you put a strain here, like if I put a cyclopropane here, it will undergo the only retroaldol, because the bond formation of the aldol reaction is not that favorable, because it has to generate one strain ring. It is not that feasible. So it will undergo the only retroaldol. Aldol reaction is not possible. And if you look at another precursor, they're like a graph fragmentation. I'm taking this cyclopentanone. If I add this potassium hydroxide, it will undergo the graph fragmentation to give this kind of product. Here the mechanism is just OH minus can attack here, and here it will generate alkoxide anion, and it will come up here and will come up here, and the OMS will knock off here. So here, if you look at there is a one common feature in these two reactions, that one. So in order to do the bond fragmentation, it need to meet the certain kind of requirements. What requirements is needed? First position should have a high electron density. So either it can be anion or it can be the lone pair. So either anion and lone pair should be there at the first position. And the second and third bond should be the strain bond. So it no need to be strain in all cases, but if we have the strain, then it will be easy to break the bond. And the fourth position, it contains electrophilic center. The electrophilic center, either it can be a carbonyl or it can be a leaving group like iodo, bromo, mesylate, any other thing. So first of all, if you want to do the selective bond fragmentation of our precursor, we have to convert our common precursor into these requirements. Okay, so now I'll show the A bond fragmentation, how we can do this one. So for example, add a base, the base to this molecule. This hydrogen is the most acidic proton. So the base can pick up the proton from here and it can generate anion here. Just to look at this structure, it is the first position anion is there, and the second and the third is a strain bond, and the fourth position is the electrophilic center. So to this compound, we have added potassium hydrate and THF at minus 10 degrees centigrade. It will undergo the fragmentation to give the cyclohexylamine derivative, this one. So the mechanism is the potassium hydrate, it has taken the acidic proton from here, and this anion actually exits the exoanion, because we are getting the exo product here, the common precursor. So again, it will generate enolate and it will come to the endoanion. So antiplanarity is necessary to clear this bond. So it will come up here and the CN bond breaks and it will give the cyclohexylamine derivative. So if you want to cleave the B bond, now the B bond is the whatever I have shown here in the blue color, that's the B bond. So in order to cleave the B bond, again, we have to convert our structure into these requirements. For example, we had this nucleophile comes from the exo side, and then it will come like this one, and it will generate the anion here. Then again, you look at the requirements. So first position anion is there, second and third is a strain bond, and the fourth position electrophilic center is there. So to prove this concept, so what we did it, we have added the sodium methoxide 10 mole % in methanol at 0 degrees centigrade. We got 88% of 2255 tetrasubstituted pyrrolidine. First, the nucleophile will add here. It will generate alkoxide anion, and it comes up here and open up into it's like a retro-Dickman kind of reaction. So after quenching under acidic condition, we got the 2255 tetrasubstituted pyrrolidine. So now we have added the nucleophile here. So what will happen if you add an electrophile? Generally, electrophile means it can add alpha to carbonyl only. It can only the possible, because nucleophile can add an carbonyl part, but electrophile alpha to carbonyl on part only, it can be feasible here. So for this, what we did it, so we have taken a benzaldehyde here, or we can take benzaldehyde, or maybe imines also we can take it. We have added base here first. So you remember one thing here, that if you put a R groups here previously, if I generate anion here, the CN bond was broken. But if I, instead of R groups, if I put a hydrogens, then the bond breaking is not that feasible. it takes harsh reaction conditions. So when we do the reaction at a room temperature, so this anion, whatever it is resulted here, it attacked on this aldehyde. If suppose if X is oxygen, then it's a benzyl, it attacked here. It generated O minus alkoxide. This resulted O minus, again it will attack on this carbonyl. It will again, it will generate the system. It's a requirement for the B bond fragmentation. It will undergo the fragmentation to give the 2,5-disubstituted pyrrolidine. Here, compared to previous approach to this approach is like previously we got 2,2,4 for tetrasubstituted pyrrolidine, and in this approach we got the 2,5-disubstituted pyrrolidine, and additional we put one like a benzylic part here, this one, the arene part here. And now the D bond fragmentation. So here it actually contains only A bond and B bond and C bond. So A bond and B bond and C bond. Sorry, something is disturbing here. One minute. I don't know how this. Just I'll close the presentation. I'll open.
See, don't worry about it, sir. Please go ahead. Go. Continue your class.
Yeah, so there is some disturbance came here, so that's why I stopped. Okay,
Slide is okay.
It's
Slide is
only
okay?
a pen mark, sir. No problem. It's a pen mark.
Pen mark, no. So I'll just share it once again, the screen. Okay, so now according to the concept, which is a more strain that will break first. So our concept is like here I already told you that sulfone is not only act as a withdrawing group, it can act as a leaving group also. So suppose if we introduce more strain than this bond, so more strain than the B bonds, and we expected that that bond should break first. So if we introduce like a cyclopropane here, then if we count the number that 1, 2, 3, and 4, the fourth position, the sulfonyl group should act as a leaving group. So we expected that 2,3 bonds should break. So in order to test this, what we did it like we have taken this compound which we subjected under Simon-Smith reaction condition, the diethyl zinc and diodomethane. It make the zinc enolate, and further it will undergo the cyclopropanation reaction with another equivalent. It made the cyclopropane. Now it underwent the smooth fragmentation that what we decided here. The anion comes up here, and this bond was broken, the 2,3 bond broken, and here it generated that alkene. So the SO2 is now the leaving group here. Now we did it A bond fragmentation and B bond fragmentation. So only the C bond was left here. In order to do the C bond fragmentation, so here in this precursor, it is very difficult to do the C bond fragmentation because it doesn't meet the requirement for the fragmentation. In order to do this fragmentation, what we need to do, we have to, first of all, we have to remove this sulfonyl group. And another requirement is we have to keep an electron withdrawing group here, like the fourth position electron density here. So then only it can possible that I can cleave this 2,3 bond to get this fragment. So after cleaving the C bond fragmentation, we would like to apply that strategy to the synthesis of a cylindricin kind of alkalides here. So first we would like to convert this, whatever the desired precursor we have, we would like to convert that precursor into this tricyclic framework. And if we have this framework, and it will undergo the C bond fragmentation to give this bicyclic spirofused framework, and it will undergo the azamical addition to give the cylindricin class of alkalides. This is our strategy. So the cylindricins are also important natural product. This contain the cytotoxic activity. If in this case, for example, if you see that R is equal to H, then it's a cylindricin C. R equal to Me means cylindricin D. R equal to acyl means it's a cylindricin E. Okay, so the strategy is like first our target is to convert our structure, that whatever the precursor we have to convert this to and this tricyclic core. So in order to convert that one, we have chosen the classical transformation. So what we have taken this compound, the bicyclic framework, and we have added the diol H. That reduction, the diol H reduces both this esters as well as this ketone. So here the ketone, the hydrate source comes from the exophase, and we got this endo alcohol. So next we would like to protect these two alcohols. We use the paratoluene sulfonic acid in acetone solvent. So under acidic condition, it underwent the very simple ketal production. Then we have taken this compound, we subjected for the oxidation reaction, that one, we use the IBX. IBX, it will oxidize this primary alcohol to aldehyde. Then to this aldehyde, we added vinyl magnesium bromide. So both steps, it gave the 76% yield. When we add vinyl magnesium bromide, so it gave this allyl alcohol. The diastereomeric ratio is a 5:1 here. So in later stages, we don't need, we will destroy this chiral center. So we proceeded with the mixture of diastereomeric ratio. We could not separate here the diasteromer. It was very difficult to separate here the two diastereomers. So what we did it, so we have taken this allyl alcohol, we treated with this methyl chloroformate, and we protected this alcohol, and it resulted this allyl carbonate unit. And under mild oxidation condition, we deprotected this ketal unit, and we got this diols again. So this diols, again, we subjected for the IBX oxidation, and both this primary alcohol and the secondary alcohol both went oxidation to give this, again, dicarbonyl compound. Now, we have taken this compound, we subjected for intramolecular Suzy-Trost reaction. So this was a very nice reaction. We performed this one in aqueous media, so 1:1 ratio of ethyl acetate and water. So it gave very nice yield, 98%. So first what happened here, the palladium PPH3 complex, it makes the 5-allyl complex. Now this 5-allyl complex selectively attacked from this exosite, and it gave this tricyclic product. So after having this material, then we subjected it for the hydrogenation of this double bond, and we reduced this double bond. And during this reduction, we did not expect that this aldehyde undergo the acetal protection. But luckily, we need actually the protection of this aldehyde, but luckily it was happened because this hydrogen palladium carbon contains mild amount of acidic HCl. So this one resulted to protection of this aldehyde, this one. So it's a 30 hours it has taken, but it gave excellent till 90%. So later we removed this tosyl group radical mediated desulfonylation, that is sodium amalgam, and in presence of boric acid, it gave the 60% yield of this product. So an anhydrous condition, next step is anhydrous condition. We use